Welcome to A Slice of Literature, brought to you by the Alyosha Society, where we are pursuing truth, beauty, and goodness through great literature. And the Slice of Literature series, what I'm doing here is taking a single scene from a work of literature, something that's so amazing, so outstanding that it can actually stand on its own. I do provide some context for the sake of the video, but that aspect of the novel or novels could potentially stand all by itself. In this video, we're going to be looking at the archetypal characters in all six of Jane Austen's, I think I'm missing Persuasion. The archetypal characters in Jane Austen's novels. Now, after reading the six novels, I noticed the same characters tend to show up. No. I'm not talking about the exact same characters. I'm talking about the type of characters, archetypes. What do I mean? You probably already guessed it. Yeah, of course I have a visual. Come on, guys. How long have you even known me? Let's take a look at it. And here we go. There we go. So, common characters in the Jane Austen novels. All right, let's see what we can do here. Yeah, here we go. So, what I'm saying here is if you look across that gray row, that top row there, I'm saying that there are at least seven archetypal characters in the Jane Austen novels. So, there is one of these in every single novel. Now, I'm going to throw out a theory here as to why I think she's doing this. Let me move myself so you can actually see the chart. I'm going to throw out a theory, and then I am inviting, please email me, contact me. I'd love to hear what you think about my theory. But first of all, let me just kind of explain what I mean. What I'm saying here is that every novel has a heroine that is the main female character. Well, most of you know that. Eleanor Dashwood, Fanny Price, Emma Woodhouse, Catherine Morland, and so forth, Anne Elliot, Lizzie Bennet. And you probably know who they are if you've read the Jane Austen novels. That character, okay, you turn me off right now if you don't want any plot spoilers. In fact, I am going to fill in this entire chart by the end of this video, but I'm going to warn you like nobody's business when I get to that part that it's, plot spoilers. Turn off the video if you don't want to see that. But in every Jane Austen novel, the lady marries a dude. We'll call him the hero. So there's also a villain in every single Jane Austen novel. What does he represent? Time out. I'll get to that. He's a bad guy. There's a minister in every single Austen novel. Why? Hang on. There's what I call a wise mentor, and this wise mentor, silly adult, just to give credit where credit's due. I'm pretty sure I got that from Peter Lightheart. Miniatures and Morals, fantastic book on Jane Austen's novels. But so that is someone who comes alongside the female character, the main female character, and offers good advice, good modeling of behavior and so forth. And then the immature parent / silly adult is an older person who should be mature. They're maybe in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, whatever. At that point in life, you should be a mentor, but that person isn't. So age doesn't necessarily correspond to maturity level. And then there's a secondary romance in all six of them. So let me share what I think is going on, and then warnings, plot spoilers, and so forth. And I'm going to show you this whole chart filled in. I believe, and look, the point of this video is not for me to give you an apologetic for why I believe this. I'm just gonna throw the theory out there. I believe that the Austen novels are six pictures of the gospel. The same gospel, it's not a different gospel, but just the same Christian gospel from a slightly different perspective, because the characters are archetypal characters. It's the same kind of character, but their personalities are not always exactly the same. So what do I mean by that? So there's always the bride and the bridegroom. Well, friends, right there, read the New Testament, look at Ephesians. Christ, the bridegroom, marries the church, the bride. We are basically engaged right now at this point. The Holy Spirit is sort of like the engagement ring. When the bridegroom returns, second coming, read John chapter 14. When the bridegroom returns, then the marriage will be consummated, a marriage supper of the Lamb towards the end of the book of Revelation. So the whole gospel story in the Bible is laid out in such a way that as humans, we can better understand it. And God did that by saying, well, it's like a husband and a wife relationship. So that's why you have a bride and a bridegroom in every Austen novel. So the bride is a picture of the church, and the bridegroom is a picture of Christ. Now, there's also a villain. In the Austen novels, the role of the villain could be a lot of things, but it's primarily someone who potentially could break up the relationship. So it's someone whose role is to get in between the bride and the bridegroom. That could be, Vanity Fair from Pilgrim's Progress, or anything in our lives. I mean, I want to blame everything on the devil, but anything in our lives that disrupts that relationship. And that certainly is what Satan wants to do. But that's the role of the villain. Then there's a minister in every Austen novel. Now, here's what's really interesting. In half the novels, the minister is also the hero. It's the same person. Now, again, I'm going to warn you about the plot spoilers coming. If you don't want to know any of this, then, turn me off. Watch another one of my videos. Yeah. Actually, I do have Emma ranked at number 10 on my top 10 list. And I have a separate video called 5 Reasons Why You Should Read Emma. So you could go watch that. Go read all the Austen novels and then come back and watch this video. But in half of them, the minister marries the girl. In the other half, she doesn't. So it's fascinating to me that in half the novels, the minister is essentially a really good guy. He's a role model. But then in other instances, he's kind of a buffoon. Why is that? What's such sacrilege? No. It's not sacrilege. That's the very same for us today. Some of our ministers are worthy role models, good folks, but then there are buffoons in our pulpits in some cases. Jane Austen was surrounded by ministers. Her dad was a minister. She had brothers who were ministers, cousins, uncles. So she saw it firsthand. Some of these guys were worthy and some of them really weren't. So she divides it up 50-50. I think that's very interesting. The wise mentor would be those individuals in our lives who give us good counsel, who model good behavior, who say, follow me as I follow Christ, like Paul says. Those Pauline figures, and we're kind of the Timothys, and we have these mentors. They're essentially good people. But then there are people who should be that, but they're not. Those are the immature. The reason I say immature parent / silly adult is sometimes the individual is the parent of the heroine, but that's not always the case. So we also have these people in our lives who, they've been around for a long time. They may have been in the church and been professing Christians for decades, but they haven't grown. They haven't matured. And they're not the kind of people that so age doesn't always correspond to maturity. And then there's a secondary romance. So it's another Christ and the church relationship that may have a little bit of a different twist to it. So the moment has arrived. Plot spoilers are coming, my friends. And I'm going to kind of sort of move myself out of the way. I'm going to now show you a slide that has that entire chart totally and completely filled out. If you don't want to see that, then I am, oh, wait, okay, no, okay. I've got animations all over the place here, guys. It's literally flashing at you right now. All right, here goes. All right, there it is. Let's just take a look at this. No surprise, if you're watching this video, you've probably read some or all of the Austen novels. You know who Eleanor Dashwood is. You know who Fanny Price is. Actually ends up marrying her cousin, the minister slash hero in that story, Edmund Bertram. She essentially grew up in the house of her aunt and uncle and ends up falling in love with her cousin. Oh, we all know Emma Woodhouse and Mr. Knightley. I believe Mr. Knightley, this is one of the reasons I have Emma as my number 10 in my top 10. I think Mr. Knightley is really one of the purest and best Christ figures in all of literature. Henry Tilney, not so bad, also in Northanger Abbey, but you'll notice he's also a minister. Edmund is also a minister. Come on, everybody knows the Sense and Sensibility story. You know that Edward is also a minister, but in Emma, we have Mr. Elton, and in Pride and Prejudice, we have Mr. Collins. They're just kind of goofy guys, right? They're just kind of goofy guys. And of course, we have Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, the secondary romance over there, Jane and Bingley and so forth. So let's see, villains. Who is the, I hate to say Satan figure. You know, some of these guys are really bad, but I think it would just represent anything that is an impediment to the bride-bridegroom, Christ and the church relationship. Willoughby. I believe that Henry Crawford is one of the worst figure. You know, he says, I want to tear a hole in Fanny's heart. Yeah, he's very over. He's very vocal about the fact that he is trying to get Fanny Price to fall in love with him so that he can just break her heart. He's a disgusting guy. Frank Churchill is not a great guy, but he's not as bad. I don't think he's as bad as Willoughby or Henry Crawford. If you're not as familiar with Northanger Abbey, it's a totally different kind of novel. I love Northanger Abbey. It's a parody novel. She's actually making fun of Gothic stories and Radcliffe and so forth. It's just a fun story to read and discuss. But you have Henry Tilney, again, minister and bridegroom. I don't have to even talk about Pride and Prejudice. You guys know the story very well. But these wise mentors, I love reading about them because not only do I need someone like that in my life, you know, I'm in my 50s. You know, I don't want to be the silly adult. I want to be a wise mentor. You know, I want to be a Miss Taylor / Mrs. Weston. What a gracious, kind, you know, caring individual there. Jane Bennet, Mrs. Dashwood, Lady Russell. And then you've got these goofballs who should be at that stage in their life. Mrs. Jennings, Mrs. Norris is awful. She is so incredibly self-absorbed. Mrs. Elton. And then General Tilney. He is a bad guy. He is a bad guy, you know? The Mrs. Bennet. Oh, look, I don't think that Mrs. Bennet is a bad guy or person, but she's a silly adult. Right. And then we have all the wonderful secondary romances listed over there. So there you have it, folks. That's where I'm coming from. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it makes some sense. But I honestly, friends, I would love to hear what you think about my theory. I do have support for it. I believe that Jane Austen was surrounded by the church and by ministers, and that her stories are clear pictures of the gospel, different aspects. And when you read it through and discuss the 6 Jane Austen novels, you can pull all of that out. And it just makes for phenomenal discussion that I think has the potential, to help us grow in our faith. All right, there you have it. Jane Austen's archetypal characters in this episode of A Slice of Literature. Did I miss anything? Shoot me an email, guys. Bruce@AleoshaSociety.com.